let me, Marion, you know, of course, from Eurostar, as she spoke earlier. Maria Hofberg, it's a great pleasure to have you here, Maria. Maria comes from the Swedish open access operator MTRX, which I know as being the company which runs between Stockholm and Göteborg, but are there some other routes?
No, it's just the Stockholm-Gothenburg in Sweden. That's
good. Well,
yeah.
Two lovely cities, and that's perhaps all that one needs. Ralf Cabos is the founder and MD of PaxLife, based in Potsdam, and that's we're getting progress there. And the founder and MD of PaxLife, based in Potsdam. Tell us in one word, Ralf, what PaxLife does.
We are focusing on onboard software delivery solutions in terms of deploying additional software services on board of trains for the purpose of generating revenues, for the purpose of retailing, for entertainment purposes, whatever you want, as well as offering data analysis platforms to check on how well your services are doing and then to iterate and improve the success of your services.
Perfect. Theo Hammond is Business Development Manager at Govia Thameslink, a company which, if you've travelled in and around London, you almost surely will have been on their trains. They run a network of trains right through London. Metro-style services, would that be the right description, Theo?
Mostly metro, yeah. We're, I suppose, about an 80% commuter railway, so good. Short distance in and out of London is our sweet spot. Yeah.
Well, I will come down and join you, but as there's a mic here, let me just kick off the discussion by asking our panelists, surely what we're discussing today in this ancillary revenue stream has been making the most of our assets, what it is we have, whether it be the real estate of the railway stations, whether it be the trains, whether it be selling upgrades and things like that. And we have some very different situations here for representatives of 3 different operators. And in Ralf, we have an interesting case of somebody who is actually providing services to people on trains. Another mic has appeared, thank you. So, Theo, would you like to kick off by talking about what is the situation at Govia Thameslink and what you can do in terms of ancillary revenue?
Yeah, of course, no problem at all. So, we're quite a large network. We've got about 256 stations across London and the southeast. Now, we're in a slightly strange position, which is quite common with UK operators, where we have very limited control over the trains themselves. We can't offer much in terms of installing cabins or even seat reservations across GTR. So the majority of our focus is around optimizing revenue from a station perspective. So across those stations, we've got a number of tenancies, so sort of, coffee shops, that sort of thing. We've got a large car park estate. And what we've been doing in the last sort of few years is trying to work out how best to optimize spend from passengers sort of before and after journeys. So the time they're at the station, if we can maximize what they're doing at that time, that's about the sort of, I suppose, the most important area that we can make a big difference in terms of that revenue piece.
You're in quite a...
I'm not sure, no.
Okay. You're in quite a fortunate situation, though, because you actually can do things at your stations. There'll be enormous numbers of rail operators across Europe who have simply no access to exploiting the real estate of the stations. They simply stop their trains at them. What's the situation with you in Sweden there?
Yeah, we are very much in that situation that we have no control of the experience that the customer faces in the station. So, of course, we are one of the clients to facilitate, who have discussions with the ones owning the facilities around the stations. But we don't have any actual impact on that. And that's one of the key areas where we actually get feedback from customers that they would like the customer experience to be improved, especially outside the larger stations. then of course, from an MTRX perspective, we are mainly, as you said, we are operated between Stockholm and Gothenburg, and those two stations are very well served, but we also stop at some of the fewer small stations along the way, and then of course there's a completely different story.
So what scope is there for MTR to raise ancillary revenue if you can't do it in and around stations?
We are very much focusing on the customer experience on board the train, and we are looking at things like exit free, how you could actually have quite a wide variety of ticket types. So we are ensuring that all different needs that the customer would have in wanting to change or cancel or refunds and things like that is very simple, easy to understand and things like that. And I think we are, in Sweden at least, we are one of the few operators that are actually ensuring that irrespective what kind of ticket you have bought, you always have the opportunity to change your mind.
Good. Eurostar, you're in quite a fortunate position in a way, aren't you, in that you can exploit some of the real estate at St. Pancras and Harry Norden.
So that's true to some degree. There is some flexibility that we have within the departure lounge, but just linking it back to customer experience, and several people in this conference have already made comments around Eurostar, the customer experience around departure, etc. We are still very limited in what we can do, and all this stress for checking in and going through borders, that's definitely something that we cannot do. So going back to ancillary, yes, in the area you have several shop points, and there are some commercial links with Eurostar, as well with the advertising that you can see on the screens, but this is limited.
Okay. Ralf, give us a completely different perspective. You come in from the outside as a service provider. What would you like to sell to our other three panelists or to rail operators?
Well, there's two elements. On the one hand side, what I would like to offer is the ability to analyze and understand the ongoing ancillary revenue services. So to have a data platform, a dashboard, and analysis capability that can be linked to whatever data the operator has today in whatever form and shape it exists, to be able to very easily link that to a powerful AI-assisted analysis capability, and then to assist in decision-making, what works, what doesn't work, so that there is a good form of iteration and decision-making possible with regards to how to evolve the evolution of the services offered, no matter whether this is, let's say, related to additional services at the train station, to onboard services, or whatever that may be. So this is one element, and the other element is what we are specializing on is, for as long as there is additional services on board of a train, to help to offer ways for very quickly deploying those things and activating them, because again, iteration is key, improving and learning is key, and you don't want to have learning processes that take a year or 2 years. You want to learn from the feedback that your passengers or the usage of the services give you.
Can I press you a bit, perhaps, and even give a specific example? You and I have talked before about being inspired to some extent by what was available in terms of onboard services on trains in India.
Yes, in fact, it's quite interesting. We have 3 different customers that have approached us with a request that, in fact, is very, very similar in nature. And in fact, this was the idea where people said, well, of course, in terms of food and beverage on board of a train, I have a certain portfolio that I offer. Maybe I have dining infrastructure on board. Maybe I have someone who pushes a trolley along or whatever. But wouldn't it be nice if you have a longer distance journey, if you could tie in, let's say, a restaurant or an operator along the route, allow for fresh meals to be pre-booked while you ride, and for those meals to be delivered to the train at an en route station and then to be served. And obviously there's a bit of logistics. How do you pull that off? These type of services do exist in India, and in fact we have created a solution for a customer to do exactly this in the European context, such that, for example, you could use rolling stock that is meant for, let's say, regional operations, run them on long-distance operations, but create service levels that your rolling stock was never made for, because you are pulling in outside caterers, outside restaurants to assist in terms of delivering the service on board. Of course, what's then key is that you need to have a monitoring capability to make sure this really works the way as intended, and your vendor clearly must have another ability to see what's the demand coming so that there's no service disruptions. But this is possible, and that's the type of solutions that...
Gosh, well, I wouldn't give, if next time I'm on the night train from Amsterdam to Vienna, to have a nice dinner served at a station of my choice, Koblenz or Cologne or somewhere during the evening, and actually have it brought to me at my seat from a local restaurant. But does it really work in practice? What happens if the train's diverted?
Oh, okay, yes, but that is exactly why you need this real-time capability.
Yes.
So this is why, for example, you need a powerful decision-making platform where the operator, in fact, sees, okay, what's happening in terms of operation. I mean, the same thing applies. There is a delay occurring, and you don't want to have fresh meals sitting there for half an hour. So you need to really feel the pulse. Real-time is important. It needs to be part of your IT infrastructure on board of your train, and that needs to be added in a simple and cost-effective manner. And obviously, of course, at some points in time you can have service disruptions, but then you need to be prepared for this and communicate accordingly. I mean, it can always happen that it is impossible to deliver the service, but you must be prepared for it and then capture
Absolutely.
this.
Yes. Maria, if you were to be asked if a Swedish restaurant could halfway on the journey from Sweden to Göteborg deliver meals onto the train, what would MTR say?
I think that would be very interesting, actually, and I think that's something that would change a bit of a customer's perspective or anticipation on what kind of food or beverage that you actually could be served on board the train. And I think, I mean, it's always a challenge with having a restaurant that's not fixed, but it's constantly rolling, that really be able to offer the kind of meals and food and beverage that customer would like to have.
It's not going to work on Govia with an average 20-second dwell time at stations and very high passenger loads.
Yeah, exactly. We run, well over 3,000 trains a day, and obviously, milliseconds make a big difference on the overall service. So no, probably not. But I think this all comes down to a sort of a key thing that we've been thinking about, which is really understanding exactly what our customers want from an upsell point of view. I think for GTR, we're a very sort of utilitarian brand. It's very functional. So I think when it comes to offering extra services, it's being able to get a high quality, good coffee at a station, quickly and in time as part of the journey, rather than kind of upselling throughout. I think commuters tend to be very head down. They get on the train, they know what they're doing, they stand on the same place on the platform every day, they know exactly what their process is. So it's making sure that we align our, I suppose, additional offerings to match exactly what they're after. I think that's the key thing for us, yeah.
It's very different at Eurostar, where your passengers are not traveling every day.
Well, the good news is that it might be possible for the new Eurostar, where we also have the Thalys destinations. But yes, for the cross-channel routes, it would be impossible to do that. But, I mean, you can always imagine something at the station, and grabbing at the station, it already exists, so it would be a modification of the offer.
Let's move on to another area. Is there a danger of diluting brand integrity and brand value as we start to get more third-party providers or more people, more things involved in this kind of ancillary revenue? Remember that chart we saw earlier that Wizz Air was getting 56% of their total revenue from ancillary services? What does that do for Wizz Air's core brand? Is this a key issue within the rail industry? Is it for you in Eurostar?
My view on this one is that I don't think it has an impact on their brand value, because their brand positioning is very different. If you take Wizz Air, if I remember well, most of their income comes from food and beverage that you have to buy anyway when you go on board, and you are there for a long flight. So it's not like you're not going to drink or eat anything, just have the water to get you through the journey. But if you want anything else, you have to additionally pay for it. So what they don't see in the price of the ticket that a traditional British Airways would include in the pricing of their tickets, it's shown is this ancillary revenue. And I think there's also some work, perhaps not work to do, but some rationalization around this type of stats to put that, yes, it is additional revenue, but for some operators, it's counted differently. So it's a little bit of an accounting exercise as well to some degree. And that's also one of the reasons why we said for us Eurostar in terms of benchmark, I'm never going to benchmark Eurostar to do standards because we are going to continue to offer services or ancillaries for free. There will be things that depend on our, that are part of our ADN and that we will not want to make customers pay. When it comes to third party, I think you've got different approaches on that. Yes, you could lose some of your brand perspective if you let the third party be too visible to some degree to the customer. But there are some really good partnerships and really good integrations that can actually provide value to both Eurostar and the customer, with a third party really playing a third party type of role, so not like jumping in or messing with your customer experience. So I think it's a matter of finding as well the right partners that really want to help you develop your travel experience and not just make money.
I mean, forgive my ignorance, I don't know, but I've used the Eurostar lounges at Paris Nord and at St Pancras. Are they actually run by Eurostar, or is that a third-party service?
So they are run by a partner that we have that runs our catering everywhere. But in terms of the offer proposition, everything is designed together with the Eurostar team. So that's where I'm saying it's really properly partnerships. We're not sub-renting this lounge and operating it with different people. It is run. It remains run under our supervision. If I
so in a way that
present it this way.
That's lovely. That beautiful, relaxed feel of the Paris lounge actually enhances Eurostar's brand rather than competing with it.
Yes, I would say, and when you look at the design is actually also thought by Eurostar. Yes. So everything is really, you have the product itself, that is a Eurostar product, and you've got the delivery of it, which is done by a third party, but according to our demands.
Okay. Ralf, when PaxLife provides services to our hypothetical unnamed regional rail operator with older carriages and starts delivering meals on board and other services like that, that will enhance their brand rather than detract from it, presumably.
Yes, of course, what is very important is to understand the product in the first place. And in fact, our customers who are looking at our data analysis solutions or at the delivery solutions feel that they usually don't put the generation of ancillary revenues first, but they set the priority that they say we would like to make travel more attractive and sell more tickets. But of course, we don't want to lose money by way of providing ancillary services. So the ancillary services need to be funded by themselves, so that is one important criterion. But then the overall passenger experience needs to be improved so that there is more travelers buying the tickets and maybe there is more room to increase the fares. And from that point of view, certainly from the rail operator side, we've never had the discussion that people see there to be a conflict. In the airline world, things are somewhat different, but then in the airline world, you also have a different situation because, for example, passengers don't change during the travel. So you're all sitting captive as an audience in this aluminum tube, and whatever you're getting proposed or served, well, you will have to buy or live with it. And so it's a different service proposition than a train where you have a long journey, maybe from A to B with many intermediate stops and many different origins and destinations of your passengers. So the service delivery is entirely different.
Good. Tell us a bit more about MTR in Sweden and the partners that you are working with in order to develop ancillary services.
I could just add on to what Marion said, that when it comes to picking your partners, it's really important that you pick the ones who actually adds on to your brand instead of making it dilute or anything like that. So that's one of the key focuses that we have when we are looking at what kind of partners we are collaborating with and not. So I think that's really one of the areas that we see that we have a huge potential going forward to see what other potential partners that we can add on to our services to actually increase customers' experience. And one of the interesting happenings in Sweden at this point of time, and it's also in a presentation about this, about the implementation of a new NDS, National Distribution Point for tickets, which also will enable us to offer this first and last mile to our customers, which is something that we haven't done before. So that's an interesting future ahead.
Good. And if I can't find a car parking space, for example, at a Govia Thameslink station around London, should I be blaming the car parking company or Govia? What's the situation there?
It's a very good question. We have a partner that acts on our behalf, but I think for GTR, we have a slightly different strategy in terms of where the brands sit and where third parties sit. I mean, from my very personal point of view, I think due to the nature of our customers, we do have some long distance, but in general, it's that very, it's that sort of hop on, hop off mentality. I think for us, the brands probably aren't as strong or as prevalent as perhaps Eurostar's is. So, one of our key strategies really is to engage as much as we can with third parties. And actually, if you take our car park provider is APCOA, we actually allow them to deliver their own ancillary services in the car park that they manage and then revenue share with us.
This would be things like get your car washed.
Exactly, all those sorts of things, yeah. And even to the extent of putting in sort of pop-up gyms that they have a partnership with in underutilized spaces. So, we're very keen to push that third party route. And I think, where we are from a sort of financial point of view, we're looking to, I suppose, share that risk across with the third party. So that's really quite key for us.
Good. Colleagues, you've all been so quiet. Please, somebody... A few questions to our panelists. Actually, it's very difficult for me to see because of the bright lights, but is there a hand up somewhere? Come on, people. Somebody there? No? That's disappointing. But it happens sometimes. Actually, I think it's particularly prone to happening in this room where we're very scattered and spread out. So let's just look at one other area. We've talked about making the most of our assets, the real estate, that sort of thing. We've heard mention of Eurostar holidays. What about things like last mile solutions? Is there must be surely really quite a market there in terms of add-ons that can be sold. And Sweden, what are you doing now?
Yeah, as I just mentioned, we have this Swedish national-wide project ongoing with the national distribution point for public authority tickets. So that will actually enable us to sell those types of tickets that we haven't been able to sell before, which is really an interesting area. And I see with that standard being implemented and opening up the possibilities of adding much more mobility solutions to that, not just the ordinary public transport, so adding also micro mobility solutions. So interesting times.
With Eurostar, what I would love to see is that I don't have to go along to the buffet or restaurant in order to buy a Paris Metro ticket. I would like my Eurostar ticket to include Paris Metro. Is there something you can do to help me there?
I wish. So to some degree, all these ticketing issues that you might have experienced in the past 5 to 10 years are very frustrating because we are seeing the digitalization of all tickets and they are now in our phones, etc. But there's still this integration that is very difficult because it takes a lot of resources internally from everyone, and I speak under the digital team over there at Eurostar, but it takes a lot of resources to do that type of integration. And at the end of the day, it is great for customer experience, but you have to manage all your business priorities at the same time. So to answer to you, if you have been recently to Paris, you now know that we don't have the tickets anymore. They don't accept it. I say we, but it's RATP. And they've all gone to the cards. So I think at some point this change in the way that they manage the public transportation in Paris will probably make it a little bit easier to strike, yes, a partnership or just distribution deal with them. And it's a good thing that the RATP IS director is an old Eurostar person, so it might help.
And at Govia,
I don't want to promise, but
no,
I hope.
Okay. At Govia Thameslink, you're part of an integrated ticketing scheme anyway with TfL, at least the core of your network.
We are, yes. So there's significant integrations for us in terms of travel to and from London. But I think above that, we've been looking the last few years of how to build in some of those sort of last mile services into our booking flow. For us, online has not been the biggest share of retailing. That's hopefully going to grow over the next few years. So we've been looking at upselling a few services as part of that flow. Be that a sort of a taxi booking integration or those kind of things. So they're on the roadmap. But again, yeah, the challenges around wider ticketing integrations it's that kind of risk-reward model to what extent. And also, to what extent customers are quite happy just on their own to get their own last leg. They seem to be quite happy with us sometimes, but It depends.
Let's give the last word to Ralf, who's got enormous experience in serving the aviation industry. What's the thing that you would really love to sell to all of us in the rail industry, the little extras?
Well, at the end of the day, I would love to sell the capability to bring in multiple sources of supply to the train along the lines of what I've been saying before. I would love to see leveraging on the Wi-Fi or capability I have on board to bring in additional choices of onwards ticketing, etc., along the lines of what we've discussed just now. But I think the most important for me as a traveler that the airline cannot offer is innovation in terms of food and beverage, so that I don't have to rush for some kiosk before I jump onto the train, and then it's always the same food. But I would love to see a variety. I would love to see some food that is representative of where I travel, and that is what I would love to see as a train traveler, but where I would also love to help in terms of providing additional service levels for train operators.
Absolutely perfect. Colleagues, lunch beckons. We resume at 2:30 with once again this afternoon a choice of 5 different streams for you to join. Take time to have a look at the innovation zone, take time to look at our sponsors' stands, and to look around this gorgeous building. This is an absolutely remarkable piece of architecture, so walk up and look at the galleries. But we really mustn't end without a big vote of thanks to our panel. Thank you all very, very much.